Hello everyone, myself Tarun. I work as an engineering lead at SquadVoice. So we are a startup based out of Noida and States. So today I'm going to be giving a 5 minutes talk about how do you track your live queries happening on your Postgres instance. So just to give you context, we run on AWS majorly, and on AWS we run on RDS. We use RDS for our database provider. So 2 years back, RDS did not have something. They now launched performance sites which can be used to track live queries. So 2 years back, we had this problem that how do you track live queries that are happening on a Postgres instance, because we were figuring out what are the problems that are there with our database, why are certain APIs, certain asynchronous jobs, certain cron jobs are running slow, etc., and what is the bottleneck is. So first option that everyone says that why don't you enable log files and read the logs, that why are certain queries are slow and which queries are actually slow. So there are certain problems with log files. First of all, it's not a problem, it's a general configuration that in order for log files to work correctly, you need to set up 2 parameters. First is log statement, that what kind of statements do you want to log. It can be all statements, it can be DML statement, it can be DDL statement, or you can set it to none also. The second parameter is log min duration statement that says that what is the threshold after which you want to log the statement. For example, I set the threshold to be 10 milliseconds. So any statement that takes more than 10 milliseconds, it will log only those statements. Any statement which is taking less than 10 milliseconds, it will not even log those statements. So these are 2 parameters that primarily control how logging is done in Postgres. There are other parameters also, but these are the primary 2 parameters. So setting log min duration to a larger value would mean that we will lose out on some queries that are executing threshold lower than that, while setting to a lower value, which can mean 0, which means log everything, will mean that all kind of logs will get stored and will increase disk space of your database server. And we actually legitimately had a downtime due to that. So I did that. I mean, on a Friday night, people say don't do deployments, but I changed my Postgres configuration to log everything. And on Sunday evening, I got a call that we are down. So you cannot set to a lower value also. And the same kind of queries are not grouped by default. So for example, if I have a query which says select star from my example table where A is equals to 1, and another query is select star from example table where A is equals to 2. These 2 types of queries are not grouped by default, so you need to individually analyze each of those queries. And you have to install something on the top of to analyze these queries to make sense of these logs, because you cannot just read the raw logs and try to make sense out of it. So Postgres gives a extension which is PG statements to overcome all of these issues. What PG statement does is it provides a means to track all SQL queries being executed at the server, at the database server. We have to load this extension manually. Since it requires shared memory, it is not on by default, but you have to load this extension and reboot your database server. And once your database server is rebooted, it will start tracking all the SQL queries that is happening on that database server. It can be multiple, there can be multiple databases, multiple users also. So it tracks everything. But a query from one single user, one single database is not visible to another user in another database. It also stored different statistics with respect to query, like what is the user ID that was used for querying this, what was the query ID is just the hash, what is the exact query that happened, what is the total time that query took, how many calls are there in this particular duration, what is the minimum time that query took, what are the number of rows that it returned, how many disk fetches are there, how many heap fetches are there. A whole lot of statistics are written by PG stat statements. And best part is similar kind of queries are grouped by using query ID and hashing. So what Postgres does is the constants that you are using in your query, Postgres templatize it and does some kind of hashing and returns a query ID. Now that query ID, PG statements use that query ID to group similar kind of queries. So that way you can group similar kind of queries, and PG statement provides you all kind of queries without actually storing everything in log file and then installing some other software on top of it to make sense of those log files. But since PG statements is also a table, it requires space in your database server, and over time it can consume a considerable space. So just 2 minutes. So what we did was we periodically refresh that table. On top of tracking SQL queries, there are other problems also, like you need to track index health, database health, connection stats, etc. So for that, there is a open source tool available, which is PG Hero. What PG Hero is basically a wrapper around all of this. It gives you a nice UI of that sort where you can see what are the live queries that are happening in your database, how much time it is taking, how many calls are there. You can filter which time you want the query to be, and it's open source, it's free for everyone. You just need to connect your database. Other than queries, it also gives you maintenance stats, it also gives you space stats, it also gives you what are the recommended indexes, etc., etc. So we used PGRO and it got the job done. Thank you so much, and also I'll be giving a talk tomorrow around brain indexing, materialized view, partitioning in Grand Victoria 2. Looking forward to host you there. Yeah, that's it from my side.